Targaryen dragons don't tend to have the happiest of endings because, dragons, fire, flame, nom nom nom, you get it. But there are a few dragons who I think are quite as sad as the poor short life of Quicksilver over here. The she-dragon who was bonded to a failed king and then a failed attempt at king. Through no fault of her own. Welcome back to my Targaryen Dragon series, where I cover all of the Targaryen dragons from Aegon's conquest all the way through when there were no more. Up until Daenerys shows up with, new ones, yay! Also, if you were sad that I didn't post an episode last week, I just posted a new episode. It's called the Daddy Issues episode. It's fun. Anyway, it's over the other place, so, you get it. Anyway, back to Quicksilver, though. So, Quicksilver was born in the year 7 AC, so 7 after Conquest. So, 7 years after the Conquest, Quicksilver was born on Dragonstone, to which dragon? Unsure. My money is on Meraxes, Rhaenys' dragon, and that is because Quicksilver would go on to bond with Aenys over there. Aenys was the first child of Aegon the Conqueror and Rhaenys the Conqueror, his, sister wife, and he was born in a not so swell situation. So he was born the same year as Quicksilver over here in the year 7, and he just from the get-go was like a very frail child, very small, very sick all the time, and they were very concerned that the child wasn't going to make it. And this was, of course, concerning because Aegon the Conqueror had been king for 7 years at this point and still not had any children up until Aenys, which many people would find odd and be like, why aren't you having kids? You have 2 wives. This should be pretty easy for you, but who knows? Anyway, but Aenys is born, he's not doing well, and people, of course, start to whisper, and they're like, ooh, what if it's not Aegon's real son, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Rhaenys liked to hang out with, artistic folk, and people took that to, mean, banging, I don't know. But finally, after they couldn't figure out basically anything to do for the child who was continually getting sick, who wasn't getting any stronger, they decided to see if the child would bond with a hatchling, in this case Quicksilver. So they introduced little baby Quicksilver to baby Aenys over here. They bond, and then Aenys immediately starts to get better. He starts to get stronger, he starts to grow, and his kind of sickly qualities fall away on the outside. Not to harp on the guy, he had a so-so life, but Aenys grows up and he's just fine. He's just fine at everything. He's not good, he doesn't excel, he's not a good warrior, he's just kind of a quiet person, whatever, but he's gonna be the next king, and so Aegon spends all of his attention on him, and the fact that he's a dragon rider makes him feel very legitimate. Eventually Aenys would have a brother, Maegor, who wasn't a dragon rider, at least for a while, which made the discrepancy between the two kind of interesting, because yes, Aenys was kind of not great at most things, and Maegor was the more exceptional warrior and all that stuff, but Aenys was the dragon rider. Aenys was the one that had the Valyrian cred, if you will, all thanks to Quicksilver over here. So from what we can deduce, before the Red Keep was built and King's Landing became an actual city, there was the Aegon Fort there, in that area, the mouth of the Blackwater Bay, and then there was Dragonstone. And so the Targaryens still basically lived on Dragonstone even while they were ruling the kingdoms initially, because the Aegon Fort, it was a fort, it was wood, and it wasn't great. Eventually, Aegon would decide, let's build a proper city with a proper castle, but it took 40 years to complete, and wouldn't be completed until, spoiler alert, Maegor was king. So we can deduce that Quicksilver lived on Dragonstone for, the majority of her life, and then eventually would have to lose her initial rider. And that is because after Aegon the Conqueror, died, Aenys would become king, but he would only be king for about 5 years, and it was a very, very bad 5 years, marked by the entirety of the kingdom suddenly being oh, Aegon's not here anymore? I don't think we have to listen to these Targaryens. And if you're wondering, okay, but why aren't they listening to, the dragons? Well, once Aenys is king, he doesn't want to engage in any fighting. So several times times he's urged, like, hey, go take Quicksilver and, like, put the smack down on these people. One, like, some of it, because there was like 4 different rebellions at once. And he'd be like, no, I don't think we should do that. And he's the king, so he's in charge. And if he's not deploying himself, he's certainly not deploying Visenya with Vhagar, or Maegor with Balerion, because Maegor would take Balerion after Aegon dies. I'm simplifying, of course, but eventually, after 5 years of this and trying to, like, put down these rebellions and, like, doing, like, a so-so job of it, Aenys finally just, like, passes away. Purportedly, I think, like, his stomach bursts. He just collapses. He gets really ill. Visenya, like, nurses him for a little bit. He gets a little better, and then he goes kaput. Very sadly, at his funeral, it's Quicksilver that lights the funeral pyre, sending him away from this world. But then all hell kind of breaks loose for everyone. Because at this point, the next king who, should be coming up is Aenys' son, Aegon. So he named his son Aegon after his father. Very nice, very, very Targaryen. But oh no, Maegor shows up, because right after Aenys passes away, Visenya goes and gets Maegor, who has been kind of banished to Essos for a little bit, and brings him back, and Maegor seizes the throne. So, and at this point, Aegon, who would later be known as Aegon the Uncrowned, he's kind of trapped in the Westerlands, because, again, just besieged with all of these different rebellions going on. And then you have poor Quicksilver, who's now just, like, chilling on Dragonstone, and then eventually would be chilling in the Dragon Pit in King's Landing. And this is important because at one point, finally, after, I don't even remember, like a year or something, Aegon the Uncrowned and his sister wife, Rhaena, are able to sneak out of their, where they've been taking refuge, and sneak into King's Landing, because Maegor was away in Old Town. I think, like, making up with his first wife. So they sneak into King's Landing because Rhaena has a dragon, but they've been separated while, she was trapped in the Westerlands with all the rebellions. And so she gets her dragon, Dreamfire, and then Aegon the Uncrowned claims his father's dragon, Quicksilver. And so Quicksilver now has a second rider. Yay! Will he be any more successful than his father before him? No. So Rhaena and Aegon, even with the dragons, realize that they don't have the manpower to, like, hold King's Landing if Maegor comes back with both Balerion and an army. So they bebop out of there with their dragons and claim it as, a positive victory of a day. And then they go and they regroup in the Westerlands and decide, like, we're going to put together an army and we're going to challenge Maegor basically for the throne and try to, like, put Aegon back where he should be. Now, this is where things get a little weird. For whatever reason, Aegon doesn't let Rhaena come with him with Dreamfire, which, you'd think that would probably be a very good idea, because 2 dragons are better than 1, especially when, both of their dragons are slightly smaller. Especially compared to fucking Balerion, who is the giant fucking black dread monster, just nuclear explode. You get it. But for whatever reason, he's like, no, Rhaena, you and Dreamfire stay here where you're useless. And then I will march with the army and we will go do the thing. And so they do the thing. They get, riding Quicksilver, Aegon finds, like, where the opposing army is, and is like, yeah, I'm going to lead everyone. It's going to be great. Let's take out this opposing army. Boo! Because they had heard that Maegor wasn't going to be there. But then, oh no, who shows up? Maegor riding Balerion. And so that's what this bottom artwork is over here. So we have what becomes known as the Battle Under the God's Eye. Sorry, the Battle Beneath the God's Eye. Now, it immediately became apparent that this was not a battle that Quicksilver and or Aegon could win. Quicksilver was about a quarter of the size of Balerion, and, was a seasoned, and Balerion being, like, a seasoned, battle dragon, if you will. And so in Fire and Blood, it's noted that for the first time since the Doom of Valyria, dragon fought dragon, and in that battle, for the first time again since the Doom of Valyria, a dragon killed another dragon. Balerion rips one of Quicksilver's wings off, and then Quicksilver, falls to the ground with Aegon on her back, and, goes, I'm not living anymore. Again, a very sad kind of short life for a sweet dragon that just was unfortunately paired with 2 kind of incompetent men. I'm so sorry. Anyway, please let me know in the comments which dragons you want me to talk about next. I think the next one, like age-wise, is Dreamfire. I know a lot of people also want me to talk about Cannibal because we don't really know how old Cannibal is, and Cannibal's a weird one. But anyway, yeah, like let me know in the comments. Y'all are cool. Hope you have a good night. Okay, goodbye.